needs to have money that they can put away for other emergencies that may arise. So budgeting is that act of doing all this, knowing fully well that the finances we have can easily vanish. And I kind of use a proverb to point this out to us to understand that Proverbs tells us that we don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. Being wise enough to know when to quit, we should be wise enough to know when to quit, because in a blink of an eye, wealth disappears and it will grow wings and fly away like an eagle. So when they say it grows wing, it disappears and grows wing and fly. It doesn't mean that money just all of a sudden, when you have money in your bank account, it just disappears. No, or your wealth all of a sudden disappears. It disappears because of the character or the value of the individual in not knowing how to adequately plan and budget and put money, spend the resources they have, because money in this sense is wealth is in this sense is not something that is something that we have gained by either our labor or by using other people's labor. So that is, or using your capital or using the finances you have put aside as well. So there are three ways you grow your finances. Either you grow it by your hour. So you give somebody your hour, give somebody your skills, which is your hour, and they pay you. Or you have grown to the next stage where you have you now use other people's hour to create wealth, or you grow even to a further stage where you now put your money into other places and they start creating you this finances or this wealth. So wealth not adequately managed will invariably grow wings and fly. So for believers, we must make sure that we manage our budget. We manage that which we have, no matter how small or how big it is. God expects that we should budget, that we should plan how we are going to spend this money. Because if we don't take time, the money will disappear and could lead us to ruin. Then the next slide says budgeting is all about balancing your need. So budgeting is all about we understanding how we can budget, balance our needs. So each and every one of us have needs, whether it's the young couples or those single in our midst who are expecting to be married. There is the expectation that we must balance our budget. So budget there is being balanced. How do you balance it? By making sure that we plan adequately. And it says balancing your need with God's desire for your life. So God has a desire for each and every one of us, and one of his desires is that we be in good health. So how do you budget for having good health? You have to make sure that you have money put aside for things that pertains to your health. You have to make sure that we eat adequately. You have to make sure that if you need to go exercising, walking, whatever, that you are budgeting to make sure that you have those resources there. In the same way, God desires that we shall be at the top. Somebody who must be at the top must make sure they balance their budget to have savings for making sure that they will be at the top. How can you be at the top? By developing yourself. So there is a budget for that one. There is a need for you to put money aside as a couple to say, this is where we are going to invest. We see ourselves in the next 10 years. This is what we are aiming for. So we start balancing those budgets according to the desires of God for our life. So each person, without being prescriptive, because we all have various needs. So for some people, it might be that we want to be an entrepreneur. We want to start buying properties. We want to start investing in little businesses here and there, shares and all that. So we need to balance those budgets to make sure that we have money that are put aside for all these things, because that is our, if we don't budget for this money, if we don't budget for these finances, the tendencies that they will be there or they will remain is very limited. We end up, you can look at the cases of so many people whose wealth, they say their wealth is in their tummy. You look at some people, the example, in Nigeria, you see a lot of people sometimes, from where I come from, you see people who go into the beer parlor and they drink up to 3 cartons, 4 cartons, and that is their blowing that money, and you know how much that costs. And these are money that could have easily been used for something. And as believer also, we could fall into the tendency of trying to catch up with other people. It makes us not to budget properly. You see people trying to change clothes every now and then, buying designers, all those things that really, everybody should know what is God's desires plan for you. If you don't fulfill those desired plan of God for your life because you are chasing things that you are seeing other people doing, then your budget will never balance. That of the family will never balance because we end up chasing things. And also you could look at that in the ramification. There are other people who do the same thing. I see a lot of this also in UK. You see people who because of the heart, sometimes it's an act of love. Sometimes our inability to budget is not because we are not prudent. Sometimes it could be because of we want the best as well. I could give you an example. If some people decide to send their children to private school here, you know how much it's going to cost, and you have looked at your finances and it can't cope with that. Rather than you focusing on giving your child the best education, it doesn't necessarily mean that they must go to a private school to get it. They might go to some other school and get it. But you see a lot of people here spending monies they do not have just to send a child to school. At the end of the day, God trains a child, but they haven't inquired and found out what are the plans of God. If God has ordained for that, he would have made the resources available. So another school would have been perfectly okay for that child, but they end up finding themselves in ruin. And so I use the act of not balancing your budget. I liken it to when Jesus was speaking to the Pharisees, his disciples, and those who was preaching is in Luke 12, verse 15. He said to them, beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not assured by how much, is not measured by how much you own. So our life is never measured by how much you own. So this is kind of looking at the tendency of people overspending or over stretching themselves because of their desire to own things that really do not matter. So Christ is telling us that really life is not all about this. Let's focus on what is God's desire for our life. And this will help us to create that budget that we need for each and every one of us. Also, the next one, I said budget. A Christian budget, we give attention to 3 major areas. So now we're looking at what areas with a Christian budget. If one is supposed to create this budget that is balanced, what major areas should we actually focus on? And I put it down to the spiritual. There is a spiritual area. So these are things that pertain to glorifying God. These are things that we ought to do that are for the benefit of the kingdom. So, and these are example you could look at. You could look at the case of your tithes, your offerings, your givings to other projects, your support to other charitable arms all over the world. It might not even be within your core place of worship. It could be childless orphanages. It could be research institute where they are doing other things. All these are geared towards spiritual. So you are giving towards a particular area that is built for the glory of God. It's purely spiritual. So our budget, we must have budget that are targeted towards this. It is not just all about your tithe alone and your offering. There are many areas we should be looking at. Sometimes you could give to orphanages, widows, and things like that. So giving to them is one of the things that would help each and every one of us. Sometimes if you look at areas where there are needs in the society, and you can channel your giving towards those areas as well. These are purely all kind of geared towards your spiritual. And then you have the core one, which is where majority of our spending lies in, is in our materials. So when you look at your materials, these are your rent, your insurance, your cars, your maintenance of the cars, your feeding, your shelter, your clothing. All these are all classified as your material needs. So this is where the core spending, most of our core spending sit, and managing your home, taking care of the children, buying clothes and every other thing. These are where we spend most of our core finances on. So also you have the ones which I classify as, say, the social needs. Social needs in the sense that these are things that help you interact with other people or help you interact with the society. So it could be in form of your investments as well. These are, it helps you to interact with companies, corporate, wherever. So social needs could be your going to occasion, going to visit people, all those things, but also it covers the business as well. I put it in social because it covers any investment or savings you have to put aside for future needs. So all these sits within that social need. I've put this basket of money here, and sometimes most of us, or we treat our money as this basket that we just keep dipping hand anytime we want, just dip hand, buy one thing, dip hand, buy another, without actually thinking, okay, is this $1 for spiritual, or is this $1 for material, or is it for social? We should actually classify where this money are going to. And that is how we honor God through our spending, so that we make sure that every money we are spending is to the glory of God. Because this basket of money has a bottom, it will definitely end. So we need to plan adequately how we spend the money we have. And I used the proverb that Jesus gave us. He said that, but don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there is enough to finish it? So really, we need to make sure that as believers, as families, as spouses, as couples, that when we bring in all our money, we should actually sit down and plan for this, how we are going to spend this money, plan on our spiritual spending, our material spending, our social spending, so that we make sure that everything we are spending, we have the total cost in hand, and everyone is aware where these resources will be going into, and whatever will help the family to continue to march on. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to get to a scenario where somebody overspends on other things and causes the family to enter into shame or start running around because we can't even manage the budget we have. Are there scenarios where we don't have enough? Yes, there are scenarios where a lot of people do not have enough, but that is where budgeting comes in, where we start thinking and asking ourselves, really, where do we need to start shaving money from? Where do we need to cut money from? What do we need to stop spending on? But we'll look at this just further down in the next few minutes, where we'll talk about how we would manage or plan our budgets. So the last slide I have here is how Christians should budget. How should Christians budget? And I've got six lines. So basically, when we are faced with the requirement of budgeting, how should we really bring our budgets together? And first one I put their budget together as a family. Yeah. So we need to know how much we are making. And it's not just a case of just the husband and the wife. We need to get our children involved in budgeting. We need to get them involved so that they are not making unnecessary demand. They know the capacity and the resources that is available within the family so that they are not asking for things. And in my home, everybody have their own, when we go on holiday, everybody have their own bank card. So if you want to buy anything, bring out your card, buy what you need to buy. And this is done because sometimes I want them to understand how they spend their money. And I will tell you that there is a certain young man in my house. He doesn't care about money. He would, if you give him $200, £100 today, if he goes out, he will come back with nothing. But if you give a certain young woman, before she will spend anything, she will be calculating and planning. So, and these are all training at this tender age to get them to understand that money, if not spent properly, you won't have enough for tomorrow, because tomorrow is why we are budgeting for, even though we know that God is the one who provides, but he has already provided these finances to us. So when God has already provided you with a resources or a finance, and he's not expecting you to budget and you don't even budget, and you are still expecting that he will provide more, because we said to him that is more is given, more is expected. So when you can't even manage the little that has been given to you, how can you be entrusted with more? So God is telling us that we need to budget, we need to be planning our budget, and we need to do it as a family. So it's not a case of my money is different, your money is this. So we need to kind of have this idea where we put our money together and know how we spend each and every one of them. The next one is how should Christian budget? We should all know our expenses. We should know our expenses. Many people do not know money they spend. They just assume, this person is managing it. Even though you are not the one who is entrusted in doing it, we are expected. I believe that it comes with being responsible as a husband and wife, that we should grow to the place of responsibility, that we know our expenditures. The reason we know this is that any misfortune or liability that is borne by couples is borne by both. So we should know our expenditure. There is no caveat that tells you that when you are taken to court, when the husband is taken to court, the wife walks free. No, both of you are liable for each other's debt. So we must make sure that we know our expenditure. When you know your expenditure, this will now help you to actually plan and budget appropriately. And also, how should Christian budget? Number 3, I said we should have a priority and a hierarchy list of needs. So priority are things that are must, essential. These are things that we know we must spend on. So when we are budgeting and we are planning, there are things that are must. They will go first. Every other things will be sacrificed at the expense of this priority. So when we have our hierarchy of list, your hierarchy of list merely tells you there are some that should sit at the bottom of that list and some who would be at the top. So when we prioritize our needs, it helps us to budget adequately. And because we have prioritized all these things, we should then have the ability to know when to say no. Many people struggle with this because of your good heart. Let's give. Yes, very nice. But sometimes we are expected to know when to say no. And the reason sometimes we see people struggling is because of this lack of self-will to say no and stand by that. So saying no is not just saying no to other people. You should know when to say no to yourself as well. Sometimes you're walking in the shopping mall, you see that nice shoe, and you say, I say no to myself, I don't need this shoe. The reason you are saying no, because sometimes, as I always explain to my children, I said, any money you spend or any money you have spent today and you go and borrow to spend for tomorrow, any money borrowed for tomorrow impacts your future. So that money automatically is a money that you have spent the money of yesterday or money of tomorrow today. So it is a bad habit to spend the money of tomorrow today. So we must know when to say no to ourselves and stand by it for those things that are not necessary. Also, we must keep learning on the act of budgeting. So it's never ending. The more you are growing, the more you learn how to budget. A case in point is when you look at all the wealthy people, they have not stopped learning how to budget. If you look at them critically, even though you might call them billionaires and all that, they have other people who are working for them, but at the same time, they know that they have to budget and plan their spending. So they don't go on frivolous expenditures and all that. They don't just spend money frivolously. The only people who spend money frivolously are people who have no self-control, one of them, or people who have gotten this money in a way that is not quite legitimate, so they do not have a value for it, so they spend it frivolously without learning how to actually manage it. But most people or believers are required to keep learning so that we will improve in our act of budgeting. In a scenario where, in a marriage situation where one person is not very key, is not well savvy in managing, the other person can take the lead, and at the same time helping to kind of train and cushion and say, this is what you need to, let's push you up as well, because it's not just a case of one person. Remember, I said we budget together as a family, so it's not just one person just doing this. Everybody is expected to be hands-on, because the family finance is for the family. So we all should be part of the budgeting. We all should be part of knowing our expenditure. We all should be part of knowing what our priority, because sometimes the priority of the husband is different from the priority of the wife. So we must come together to have a uniform priority and say between ourselves, which one should be at the top. So this is why we need to keep learning on the act of budgeting so that we can have a strong financial family finance. And lastly, I said we must keep seeking God's help, because you can never take God out of the equation. God is the one who has given us the strength to get wealth, and He's the one who will help us. When you're struggling and you are incapable of managing the finances, seek the help. Call on Him, and God will never forsake anyone who is struggling. Even if you are now in debt and you are going through scenario and saying, how will I come out of this? First, call on to God, call for His help, ask for His direction, ask for His leading. He will now keep reminding you, or the Spirit will remind you and keep helping and nudging you on things that needs to give way, things that are not essential, things that are not of priority, that needs to give way. And then we start from this area and move on and move up and grow our family finances. Thank you all. So, question?
Thank you very much, Deacon Fabian. It's always refreshing to hear from you. And I pray that God will continue blessing you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
So, so we've heard quite a lot. I personally like the way this started, because a lot of things were said in perspective that I have not thought about before. The first one, that the way we spend our money shows our values and our beliefs. That is widely true, because of course the things you buy with your money shows the kind of person you are really. And also, the statement that budgeting is about balancing our needs with God's desire for our lives. We realize that these resources are finite, and that's why we plan. Assuming money was like the sands on the seashore, there'll be no need for this kind of conversation, because as soon as you need, you just take your bucket or you take whatever container you have, go fetch and spend. And then budgeting is about balancing our needs with God's desires for our lives. And also, our brother told us about three cardinal ways we spend our money: spiritual areas, material and social needs. And also, he stated 6 points. 6 points how Christians should budget. And personally, there's a takeaway from me for here, because number 4 affects me personally. Know when to say no. So at times I find myself in the bid to help others, assist others, I overstretch myself. And at times too, because it says the saying no is to others than yourself, at times too, I like gadgets a lot. So probably I see a smartwatch or I see a new phone, then I really want to get it. And at times I don't like it lands me in trouble. So this is my takeaway from this discussion today, personally. Number 4, know when to say no, either to others and to myself. And I know, as we have listened, we all have seen, because we all have seen areas we can be better. Because the reason we have these discussions every Sunday, either being finance, raising our children, love between husband and wife, is to make ourselves better. We can always be better. We can always do better. We can always manage better. We can always grow better. And I know God has spoken to us. There are areas too we can look at in these 6 steps that He has stated, which I know, of course, is not an exhaustive list, but even keeping it at these 6, there are ways. If you look at critically, there are ways we can be better. There are things we can do better. There are things we can align and reamend in our homes, in our budgeting, and our personal finance. And I pray that God will grant us the humility that when we hear things like this, we are humble enough to make amends where we need to make amends, so that our lives will be better. God will bless and help all of us in Jesus' name.
Amen.
So, as always, the floor is open for questions, answers, contributions, and always as well, if there's anything that speaks to you personally that you like to share, I've shared my own. The floor is open. It's all about making ourselves better, learning from each other, and having a comfortable life according to the will of God for us. So, questions, answers, contributions.
Are we all here? Somebody shout Jesus.
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 Can we now unmute ourselves now, please? Don't be cold. I mean, this is a very important topic, please. So let's make it practical. You can hear our tutor for today, or our speaker, or our teacher, that said about 2 people in his house, even himself. There is a way that I need to say no to myself. And thank God for our coordinator. He said, I love gadgets. And the only thing I will say at this point is also the stage you find yourself in life determine how successful your budget will be. Please put that one down in your notes. The age. That young man that our teacher said today happens to be in a state of his own. And the person might be maybe second person that know how to manage or doesn't want to spend money, is also in another level. They cannot be of the same, they can't be on the same, how would I call it, age, the same platform or thinking. So, and I want to let you know that the issue of life starts from the heart. Whatever you can think, whatever you can see, whatever you can handle. So from here now, let's look at a practical example. A practical example. Let me start from Pastor Riade. Sir, what do you see to today's topic, and how do you manage? And if possible, can you give us a kind of example that this kind has become a negative role, either to you as a minister in the church or as an husband in the house? God bless you. So let's have that one as our tea of cup now before I call another person. Pastor Riade, are you at work? Pastor Riade.
Sir, hello, sir.
Are you at work?
I'm at home, sir.
Do you hear what I just asked now?
Please, can you come again, sir?
Okay. So God will help us. So be in the comfort of your home. That's why I said enable your camera so that we'll be watching ourselves. As a pastor, as a minister of God, and also as a wife, what can you say concerning the financial budget, both to the people of God and also to your family as a married man, as a father? And also, is there any area where these are, played negative, that you have learned a lesson, and how huge that lesson has been? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hallelujah.
First, we first come from the angle of being a minister in the house of God. And in the Redeemed Christian Church of God, I work as an accountant. And then, as an accountant, we normally do budget, even for the nation, every year. Of the new calendar will start by September 1st. So we are expected. When I was there, we were expected to present our budget for the next year every August. And then in the budget, how we will raise money and how we will spend it. And then we submit monthly budget, and there is an annual budget. Now our monthly budget, we submit reports to the national, and then we take the reports against our monthly spending, against what we have already projected. If there is variance, negative variance, for instance, they can be queried because we are not following the plan. And then where there is a positive variance, we will do some other things. And then also, we also have some accounts that is called statutory accounts that we must not spend from there. There's some percentage of money that goes to that account. I will not mention the account because of it for the sake of the it's confidential. That we must not spend from that account. Anyone that dares go to that account, he can be penalized. The person can be penalized, either pastor or the CICP or the accountant. So we budget for that account. And then that account, when money is there, that's what we use that money for. And that is the budget. That's one aspect of budget. So if there is no budget, for instance, you don't plan, there is no way you'll be able to achieve your goal. Even in the church, the Redeemed Christian Church of God, I'm talking from that angle. If there is no budget for it, your budget is not not
Yeah, you have 5 minutes. Go and sit now.
and they're coming from my own
Lola.
family. From my own family, I and my wife normally do budget. We do budget for what we spend for every month. For instance, when our income comes, we pull it together, and then we look at what we spend for that month, what we go for siblings, or what, and then what we must not spend. Like me, for instance, I use the knowledge that I have from experience to handle money. This money we are not going to spend it.
Yeah.
Not spend for me.
By the time, Nicholas.
There's more for people that my wife can just go
Before you see Nicholas, right?
from that thing. From that one, that can be correct if there's a unnecessary spending. But that spending will not be huge anyway. But for me, from my experience, when we say that this money is for this, or it has been put aside for this, I don't go there. I don't go there. That is just for me. It's very, very important to plan, to have a budget. You don't have to budget like our facilitator have said. The money will fly away, and then you don't know how it goes. Like me, my money for even up to this morning, when I collected my salary, I've put everything, all the expenses. It's on my system now. It's all my expenses. I put it aside. My income, I put it aside, and then because my wife was even said that she wanted to know how the money went, and then anytime he asked like that, I present to her, and then she's able to be at peace. Praise the living Jesus. So that is just my own contribution.
Yeah, thank you very much. Unfortunately, the audio is not really clear over there. Okay, thank you very much. Also, we have Bodakide here. I hope if you have the internet and is well connected, maybe you can help. He's also into finance. Sir, as a Christian and also as a professional in this topic, what can you say when it comes to budgeting and meeting the need of the people in the marriage equally, so that we are not going to say that, okay, yes, we budget, but it's like I spend more or she spend more. So, and if there is anything like that, can you please just share with us to learn any of your past experience, sir? God bless you. But I can't be over to you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank God. Over to you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, clear and good.
Okay. Thank you so much. From my experience, actually, as a banker, budgeting, I like the way the teacher actually put it, and actually he spoke on a wide range, especially in connection to the family. So from the financial angle, really, for me, actually, as a banker, what I do is I look at my expenses every month. So there is a way I forecast my expenses to ensure that, at every point that I may be variable, maybe at a point, maybe there are other things we need to do in that month. So I can do a kind of a plus. So like I can, let's say, let me use a figure around that. Let's say in a month, all my expenses for my forecast maybe is around 300,000 for an example. So what I do is I can forecast like 350 in case of any eventuality and all that. So, and I ensure that I spend that exact amount of money. So apart from that, there are other things that I also do, which my wife can testify to. I am not the type that likes spending. Let me use that word. I don't like spending money because I believe that for every money that I earn, part of it, number one, I must have at least 20% in investments. So I think part of what I also want to state here is we need to also look at what we earn and also reserve some part for investments. So I've heard about spending, but we also need to look at investing for the future. I think in our several fellowship, I've heard about shares, investment in shares, investment in other things. So we have different ways where we need to actually look at either investment in treasury bills, in fixed deposit. In fact, we can even keep it in savings where it can yield interest for us. So I think the first thing, apart from the expenditure, for me, what I normally first of all look at is, let me even rephrase it, is number one is investment. How am I, from what I earn in a month, what am I going to invest in? So I put that one, maybe 30 or 20%. Then the other part, and I'll look at my expenditure, what I'm going to, expenses, what I'm spending on. I look at it, my spending should not be more than 30% or 40% or thereabout in a month. Then also, the other part will now be a buffer where maybe if there's any other thing that can happen, you can come on along and do it. So I believe in a Christian home, we need to also have a look at that on how we can actually invest for the future, because we all know that there may be surprises later on. Things might come up that may warrant us to make an heavy withdrawal. So we must also have at back of our mind to look at that, and also ensure that in a family, the husband and wife, they are in sync together. They understand it, because what I notice is we have somebody that is so frugal, another person maybe spending anyhow. So I think we must have a way of balancing that to ensure that we are not running out of whatever we projected, because that may be a big challenge. So in my own family, really, we have been able to manage. I will use myself as an example. I don't, like I said, most of the times I don't even buy things. I don't, because what I buy is, I normally buy quality things that can last me maybe for 1 or 2 years. So in my dresses, in my shoes, I like buying quality things that I know that can pass through maybe 1 or 2 years. So once in a while I can buy things, but I'm just ensuring that I don't really spend money unnecessarily, because I know that there are other things that may come up in the future. So I think coming from the angle of the banking, is for me, it's actually work, and also in the way of the Lord, at least, though I still give, I give some guys, so my people, my parents, my people, I still have somewhere, at least I give them something. Some people can call me sometimes, I still give, as the Lord leads. So, but I also ensure that at every point in time, I'm not running out and I'm not begging for money from anybody, and God has been faithful in that regard. I think, I don't know whether I've covered that, but I think that's for my own experience. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. You have covered, but at the same time, there are so many questions that this your delivery has already fostered in this line, and I believe we are going to be looking at in a couple of weeks. We are going to be looking at how to invest as Christian. But Fabian has already took us in that line, but we don't have 35 minutes, not enough. And I believe that he has more, and people like you two are here. And thank God we have people who just graduated from business and master in business and administration, whatever. At least one or two people will have this kind of factors, features, or knowledge to also share here. No knowledge is too small. Thank you very much. But I want to ask you, sir, before I go, because of the time, has there been any time that most of the savings have to be empty? And if it happens, are they able to meet, the need for which they are being saved towards? Or a lot of things, maybe you have a kind of depreciations, but at least they work. So is there any time that you need to go into the cover of these savings and, either empty it or take greater percentage of it out? It's no more investment, but it's now become a kind of, and how will I call it, expenses to you.
Expenses. Okay. Yes. Yes, sir.
Go. Can you share?
At least the example is this study thing. Let me use the study. When we're planning for this, my wife studied in UK, so we actually made the planning like 7 or 8 months ahead. So I've been saving, and we had that in mind. So I've been saving towards that. So when the admission came in, so what we did was I would say we had a joint accounts. Open for that purpose, and we've been saving towards that. In fact, for over 8 or 9 months. So, and the other of my savings, I have to put some there. So also and she also put her own. So we have the savings. So I would say yes, we pull out the funds for the payments, for the school runs and every other things. And we thank God that we've been able to, at least considerably, we've been able to meet up everything, and we had no cost to borrow. That's the first thing. And though we're stretched, let me use that word, we're really stretched, but God has been faithful. Because apart from that also, there are other things, investment we have also made in some other areas, so that we have to actually realize that and also ensure that we pull out those funds for the effective running, because if not, it could have been something else. So, but for your question, yes, we've been able to.
I am okay, sir.
Yeah.
I'm okay, sir. We'll come back to that later. Because of our time, I don't know whether we should stop here, because I want us to look at the balancing, because there's a lot of people are just they are like Ananias and Sapphira. They are keeping what is not supposed to be kept. A lot of people, and I love the way our teachers has already rounded up. Even God, you need to plan for God, because it's the one that gives the power. I have seen rich men, and I've worked with rich men. I have seen rich men, and I've worked with rich men.